Hello, everybody. You're watching another episode of Winston Walks. My name is Winston. I take walks. I'm based here in Toronto. We are here on Markham Street, and we're going to walk down. This is Harbord as well. So along here is Harbord, tons of construction. This whole city now is just it's construction all over the place. And but we're going to walk down and do a little bit of a different talk as well. So for folks who are maybe looking for like the finance stuff, maybe it's gonna be a little bit different because in one of my like I have a hobby, so I collect sports cards and comic books and stuff like that. So kind of the question that I want to talk about and just kind of my opinion on things is are sports cards and collectibles a good investment, right? So I'm going to talk about that. So folks, if if you just want to see the walk, cool. If I know I have more finance related topics, like hardcore finance related topics, um, you know um, this one's probably not going to be the one you're going to enjoy. So I totally understand if I don't listen to the one, but I thought I'd like to kind of talk about this one because I kind of wanted to, but um, you know, um, never really had a chance to, at least online as well. So, anyways, so I collect sports cards. I've done it actually for a very, very long time. So, for probably over 40 years. All right, I actually used to work in a sports card store when I was younger. And so I've seen basically all the cycles. Obviously also comic books as well. Prior to like the whole MCU explosion and everything like that, I was well, the sports card store had comic books as well. So when I was a kid, I used to go and basically I had to spend most of my pay on comic books and sports cards. So and to be honest with you, it and I'll talk about this too after, but it did lay kind of a foundation for me in terms of asset valuation. I know in schools they don't actually teach you about like personal finance, which I think is a tragedy. I think they really should. Kids they get credit cards now, but they don't get the ways how to handle it, right? But so I'll talk about that as well. So yeah, I used to work in a sports card / comic book store. I used to build. I started off with comic books, right, and eventually got into sports cards. Baseball started off with, and it's funny because here in Canada, obviously hockey is the second dominant sport, and then it used to be basketball, and then football, right? Football wasn't that popular, frankly, back when, right? I know now it's super popular, but it wasn't back then. But anyways, in terms of the valuations of cards, so over time, obviously with grading, grading came in. I think I remember that period where we had the boom in the 90s. Okay, so obviously you went through your in the 80s, like your 84 Donruss Mattingly boom, and then went into the 86 Donruss Jose Canseco boom, and then the 89 Upper Deck Ken Griffey Jr. rookie boom, and then we kind of went into like that big crash when you had cards everywhere. En masse, right? They printed obviously tons, Upper Deck, etc. Fleer blew up, and then in terms of vintage, you know, um, vintage went up obviously, but nowhere near the levels now. But the big thing was even back then was fakes were a big thing. Also altering was a big thing as well. So that's why card grading started getting popular. Obviously, coin grading was a thing in the past. CGC with comic books, I believe, was a thing as well. But card PSA, it's funny though because PSA graded the first card, which is the T206 Wagner, the Gretzky McNall copy, and ironically that was actually altered, and they graded it. I think it was an 8, right? So kind of ironic. But then you had obviously, through the years, cards. It went from being basically just pure cardboard to like obviously glossy stock. Autographs got into it. Patches were a big thing, and then now obviously, you have to literally have now the modern day, autograph or a patch, right? To be able to sell. Well, realistically, to have high values, right? Now with obviously COVID, so the real big thing was, cards were going up prior to then, but that also had to do with the economy, right? So, collectibles, I'd say, and with comic books, obviously, it's the MCU, the DCEU. That was the big boom. Captain America. It's funny. Captain America, Iron Man. They were really like B or C rate characters when I was a kid. Spider-Man, the X-Men, Batman, Superman. Those were the A characters, right? And the Punisher was really hot when I was young as well. And then it kind of died down for a bit, but then they brought him back with the Fox MC, whatever they want to call it, right? But anyways, when we had COVID and we had that big explosion in terms of prices, I think that's where everything obviously, and then Fanatics got involved as well when they bought Tops and pretty much everything in between. They got all the licenses, right? So kind of the question now people started to flip. I think part of it was, I kind of learned it, was the sneaker culture, right? I went to SneakerCon this past year, and I kind of saw where the culture went. A lot of flipping, a lot of hot money. I'm not saying it's wrong, because like I'll sell as well. All right, if during the pandemic I actually ended up selling a bunch of stuff. Couldn't believe stuff that I had for ages, and it's kind of ironic because I actually had an order with PSA. I was one of those people who had an order stuck with PSA when they shut down, and then I had a big order actually of stuff there, and I was lucky when they actually did reopen and they started sending things back on a limited basis. I was able to actually unload some stuff at inflated prices, right? I couldn't believe the premiums that people were paying on PSA 10s on certain things, right? So you can look down here, by the way. These are all residential areas. These are beautiful houses. They're super expensive now, though. A lot of people started flipping. Obviously, in terms of the YouTube content, there's kind of a perception put, right? Certain people were selling picks. They're treating it like a quote-unquote alternative asset portfolio, which it can be, right? It can be, right? However, you have to treat it with caution, simply because I can tell you that there was a period, and I mentioned going back, this is before grading really entered, and we had a really we had a real down period. I remember going to the sports card expo, and it was like dead then. I remember it was really dead, and I can tell you, like, majority of the stuff that I had you couldn't sell, right? Probably some vintage, Gretzky Jordan rookies. Yes, you could sell, but you're gonna take a haircut on that back then, right? So it can happen. Well, the problem with alternative assets like that, you can call them that, right? Sports cards, comic books, stamps, vintage gaming, etc., is when the liquidity dries up. Sneakers, right? There's no. It's like a house in '07, '08 in the States when there's no bid. What's the true value of that asset, right? It might not be reflecting at that moment. You may need the cash, right? So that's where it comes in. The tricky part comes in. Is it an investment, right, or is it a good investment? Because the problem is that if you need to liquidate, you have no market maker. You have no. I mean, you could go to a shop, but they're gonna they're gonna slaughter you. Back when I was I'm gonna cross here because I don't want to inconvenience that gentleman coming. Back when I used to come when I was growing up, working in the shops and stuff like that, they used to pay you 50%, 50%, right? Everyone's gonna say that's unfair, but you know what? That's the market back then, right? And the thing is, they'd say, well, I have a shop to run, overhead to pay. Understood, right? But and really, you needed liquidity. That's what you're actually accepting, right? That's why when COVID hit and I was seeing just these insane prices, right? I had to start unloading. I didn't unload obviously everything at the top, but that's kind of how. That's like with every asset, right? So same with comic books as well, right? And then also you gotta also keep in mind that with sports cards or collectibles, the grading company is a big factor as well. So in sports cards, there was a company called GAI. They used to be a big thing. They used to be considered a PSA competitor. They went out of business. So if you had stuff in their slabs, good luck, right? PSA at one point was actually trailing Beckett. A 9.5 was actually worth more than a 10, right? I remember those days. So that's another thing. And now if you look at Beckett is struggling, right? And CGC's entered that market. Same with comic books, right? What's going to happen with CBCS once PSA enters, right? So that's why in terms of, you could have the same comic book graded in a different slab and you won't get the same liquidity, same pricing. So that's a big problem there. So, that's why I personally don't think it's a great investment. I think obviously, I think obviously, buy an index fund. Buy a balanced portfolio. Nice to have. Maybe like for me, I use like 10, 15, maybe 20% of your core portfolio, depending on how big it is. To alternative assets, because there is an inflation. I will say there is an inflation component, but I will also say this, right? That just because you have sports cards or comic books, right? The nature of it, I've always found this, and again, I've been collecting for a long time, is that you could sell a 52 Mantle, 52 tops Mantle back then, even was ungraded when there was ungrading, or now grading, right? But modern stuff, for instance, like an 84 tops. One thing I sold was an 84 Fleer Dwight Gooden during the pandemic, an update, right? I like Doc growing up, excellent pitcher. Got to meet him at Fanatics Fest, nice guy. I know he has issues, but nice guy to me. I have favorable memories of him. But in terms of his card as a good investment, I would definitely, when it was hot and I was able to get good money for that card, I sold it, right? Because I know that down the line, when in a regular market or in a cold market, it's not liquid, right? And you could get it back for a lot cheaper. So I found that majority of your cards will actually act in that manner, right? Now today, obviously there's the autograph and the patch component, but and then also you got to remember too, there's always risk of things like scandal. For instance, Barry Bonds, right? When I grew up, I remember the '87 Fleer. That year he was hitting those homers, even though we all knew he was juiced. Okay, but that '87 Fleer was $100. Nowadays you can get them really cheap, right? That '87 Fleer rookie, right? Barry pre-steroids was a great player. I know he doesn't have the greatest attitude with people, but you gotta respect the play. You know, Motorized, he's the steroid home run king, right? But prior to that, he was still a great player, 30-30 guy. So, but anyways, that's the thing you risk with when you have you treat that as an investment, right? So that's why I don't think they're great investments. I know there are certain entities, YouTubers, etc., that like to treat it like an investment. They have a top 5 or whatever. But honestly, sports cards don't really move that frequent. They really don't move that frequent where you're having a weekly, move, right? I mean, plus also when you think about it, if they are truly investments, okay, then you know what? They need regulation, right? Because how do you know that someone's not pumping and dumping it, right? That's the thing, right? So don't think they're great investments. I still enjoy collecting. I've collected, like I mentioned, for over 40 years. I've got a lot of stuff. Sure, I'm not going to complain, obviously, that they've gone up in value, right? But to me, I don't necessarily treat that as a bread and butter component to my lifestyle. You know what I mean? If we get another explosion, then I'll start selling some stuff, right? If like the market's soft now, I've been picking some stuff up, sure, right? Because I enjoy it, but I pick up the stuff that I like, right? But for folks out there who are, putting away, boxes of Mercury, or the new thing is the Topps Chrome update with the Skeens rookie debut patch auto. I don't know. All right, you got to be as an investment. I'd say get a balanced index fund, add some fixed income. Sure, add some alternatives. Gold is precious metals is something that maybe I should do a video on that as well. But that would be considered another alternative asset. And obviously crypto, add a little bit of that. Granted, I wouldn't necessarily buy it usually when you had this type of jump. I was picking some up previously when it came back down. But anyways, that is my video today. So we're actually on College Street again. This is Bathurst and College. That streetcar that you just saw, that goes to the exhibition in August when it's open. Folks, I want to thank you. I know this is a different video. It's more for you collectibles folks. But just wanted to talk about that a bit. Just my 2 cents worth. Obviously, I could be wrong. But at the end of the day, I just say, honestly, for me, it's a hobby, so I really enjoy it. I have a lot of great memories of a lot of great cards. At the end of the day, that's kind of how I treat it, right? I treat it less like a business than anything. So, anyways, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them on the message or any message. You think I'm wrong and I'm full of it, let me know. But also, if you're a tourist, thinking about moving here, or you're just enjoy the video, I hope you get something positive out of it. I really thank you for taking the walk with me. My name is Winston. I take walks, and see you in the next walk. Bye-bye.